was toppen after some was days I out Roy with Wickham. By Roy days I were Frank Alec. But say Uzi Wickham. Not the canta so of the way Lake Battery at the town museum. What so then on me and say Lake Battery prepared Hotiana Museum. Seeing Veterans Day, David Alec Baran, Vesta, Brienta, Kaya Hautili, in the angles of war that's nasty. And the second notice now. Doing the chief officer, I know so one award the spot. During court case, maybe, but in interview, elders interview of people like 8 family. George Holland Architects Academy, at the court case handled only here. Court case only OW, then they get to pay on some. Some B elders at the table for waiting. So it's a yo. Oro kani ateli. Any the napasna. OW. Morristown. Thomas George was residing in the Saxon Wesley. Freddie Tom, Jeff Brown, as Kyle, the Megan District, Lucy, Saxon office, years of year with the Saxon honestly, like the top backlots, taking losses, the highest days of the process day. Backlots only towards a right impact daily, then open a sub-piece a year. They right impact on the others. Any at the connectors, we are at North South, we are no way like Sophie Bafloud, we are at it's as a bit hotter bit. Kayets and Lee. No, Saturday. The day me, so what's now? Year west. At the end, Lee. At the end, I have a present out the teens. Say a nesson. Morristown and suck out Yatla, Flatitla. The funeral where it's a toy, it's a well. The day you can't find you, you're only the nearest than me. But that's that day was there. But only it's at me, your last at death. It will can't find you. Me needs at me. I owe ya horns and no so no fear at Katnissen. A guy knocked us twice. Thomas George, Tyus and lay right at the turn off. Be with me, Jack. Oh yeah, Tyus Hotillier. Knock us twice. It guy, see, terrible, Ahwettinson. Then Flani nak at Bethlensen, doing ye of a pilse, وقايونلي ينتا زيت سكت سي ينتا قايونلي أصلي زيتا خوان ديتر زيتا خوان ديتر هاي أوكي زيو نقنا بوكلي دوي نقنا بوكلي Mary George Vietnam clock hearts at says cock high them day the pet and a napasoy 6 only not was Mary George Vietnam clock hearts at every summer it was I own say Osli Kaya Hockey James Tap Bell on say Tambaya were hot sun. Not hot enough people or not land. Be your things and the clean up now outside. Yinta no chate me. Happy work only. It not the rest way me. Just need happy years. We ain't no how to play. But last day, that's so people. It was Jeff Brown and then of you. Okay, 53 years, who's the Ustan? Highestly, tennis you. So, 2 sign waited, said, it didn't say. No, you can't sit down, get out. We only had to name about 5 years, 53 years name, it was me. The Sophie about 30 years, so they use a uniform. In one mean is up, you can't sit down, get out. It's a Dan Whaley. That's lots of Dan Whaley. We've seen that they still house knittingly at nested. It was Warner Nazir by cameras and there yes you fly settled out knittingly. It was wisely. Then again the young lads at the time. Court case no elders who niche. Me but what's a hotie. Kanakartas, Zana, the Kanta, Zana Hatter, the young Karonkas, what's an hour niche. That's us me, Apakatla, Sakapano Anisland. And last day was dusted. The day, your last death. Only the meeste me, who can find you. Me needs at me, no ta, or flatty laugh at me. But I more strong, they do get. But it took me all summer, over 16, because in this door. Lachen it's off, but them then, other speakers come, you know, Vancouver. En hier moet je jekelen. Kan 18 years aan kwa taka wale osali. Ken it wat outside. Just need happy years. Zana da kay yenta ata. Zana betok stop besafsa. Or kete. No sa te ni forestry and say. Papa yes, the yenta hon tayo. Out at the wash yenta so do well. It Henry Alfred Pakanak Bonnie Nantastic. Pipeline out the gas the wash of a yit sahni. So people forest the flow. It's all can get us. It would have yes, it's a young. Just need happy yes. Oh, take care. La tui niitä kai. OW ohtini so niskai. Tenin sana oka anin sente. OW table count oya on no sateni before court case ukatilse so 70 to 80 years old. Kai some dueli ni table katilse. Freddie wa kalahkani kasaiselle. Let me enjoy this name for a while. Thomas George gave it to me. I know it belongs to you guys, but when I die, you'll get it back. That's what I told Freddie. Let me enjoy this name. The whole works are fighting with me. Sylvester George says, "Sneens and this." Yeah. Every time I sit there, he says that to me over this name. So I'm suffering, really suffering. That suck, the landlord has said. Peter David with this, the Sophie, but I'm not allowed to be. The pass with the rest. The way was the way little. Was kivi kasotkas. Vantauta tyhni. No sateeni ja pientä wellnekket. Kaeten ulenli. On niitä niin voittasti. Et no rasni sueni. No sauhli anga. Hotsana kaanasen. No sau. Andy. Jean. Bakanak. Jonka baskas. Vuortas na sattiilni. Eikä se jo. Peppa järaksta. Se jo lähestyttävästi on ueli. On sai lähestyttävästi. Se on nyt tärkeää. Jemmu se on tärkeää. Jemmu. Mun kannattaa tärkeää. Se on tiiviin. Se on jo se on nyt tärkeää. That's not happy years. Bonsai. Let's all be. So young. Now it's all the so young, so nice endly. So young, so nice endly. Don't sit there in your empty. Papa Petta. So be at the Tusney who was steaming. Den bakai. Fancy pick up your piste. Makan atahni. Anywhere but the wet Disney. And sak not was stay some be at the wet Disney. Take the other talk like me. How many times I have to tell you? This is my territory. How many times I have to tell you to get out? That's only good again. Make it good So, but get only. Yes, get out things. Decline, yeah. That's all the most of it. I'll be at the boss anyway. It will get them, B. 5 Henley. Jenta. Ani saatet niitä. Etkä se on jättää tai et muuta rasni suoni. Kentse Anni neuraadutsa sukaanassen. Yeah. Chief Office. Tenohtiilse jo. Table-qatiisartehtat jo. Sosiaalista. Kanito ani hapatoni. Hapi ukaayoni. Älä tohni. no yen ta ho ko li ala to ni la say no das ni tapi wo ne get no chatte ni a pusal a ho tin san tapi stin det gay I tapi honest gent net so stil så lærer så det så lærer du det skal weli sun yer tak ewa apatat hoyit get sun ye så yense getem den qata yitkot anu du da no lady not even 5 cents hoqat anak no yen ta patilse et no darasni tladnak så åt kahut get sam så yo rane ortilke Mary George beyen ta wona sasie den så yes hast du nesal kwas ta kasakalatar etwa klokhat Mary George Thomas George well after 32 trout just guess has cocked on how about then it's a yearly it will any style it one at the snake again so 6K will me at the snake beat at the 10 year can I know how in youth oh they would son that sucks at that now what has a step quietly with cancer asleep oh 10 years cancer that's on the set it not a rasni says cock a young nose cock one knee any up a pay yenta Senan sa teo nislan ka na netson house kai any take over our outside I just need happy yes but out of car TV kat hell was so at them ya nit say yen cuts it do all was the okay it's English it looked at us no it's a day with us Molly and spouse but first I'd like to apologize to you for getting mad I just want to say that we should be all together as niece and auntie because I looked after all of them when they were taken away. I get nothing. They got big money. Nothing for me. Little tiny kids. I kneel down and give them a bath every day. My dad went to town. Their parents went to jail. In empty house, they had nothing, no fire. Their feet was all cold. All of a sudden, my dad got in a house, and that's how we found them. He went home, he hired our neighbor, pickup, brought them all back to our house. I was in grade 8. They took me out of school at 14 years old. I never went back to school because I had to look after 9 kids. And I never ever knew where they went. Never ever knew. Also, what my dad was after was 9 kids was too much, plus all of us. And the Indian agent gave ration. They call it ration. He went to town to ask for ration so he can get food for the kids. Instead of that, Indian agent and welfare, they got together all something. He said, we can't give you that to my dad. My dad came home and said that you wouldn't give it to him. The next morning, I was given the last baby a bath. Always fool around with her because she got beautiful black hair. I was putting soap on it. The soap was standing this long. I still have that picture. Mom and I stood on the porch. Indian Asian king, welfare king. They didn't care. All of a sudden they put all the kids in the car, and the baby that I was giving a bath still had a towel around that little baby. Took her out of my arms, put them in the car, and away they went. Indian Asian turned around, pointed to my dad. You don't try to find them. Pointed at my mom, my dad, and me. You don't try to find them. Otherwise, we're gonna put you in jail. You are not trying to find them. And all this time, we never knew where they were. We didn't know. We went through lots. This is why we have to try to change. After I read this, I just translated all this into my language for these people here. Mabel understands. It's very important to use our language. It's very powerful, very powerful. And I don't want nobody to interfere with me. Molly and spouse trespassing on WAS territory. Cassia, you have been blocking WAS territory and not allowing WAS House members to go to their territories. WAS was late Matthew Sam of Topley. He was a WAS, and late Roy Morse. Morse Lake, Wickham, is WAS territory. We usually take huckleberries and spend weekend at Wickham. We enjoy the beautiful colors of Green Lake. That is why it is called Wickham, because when you go through Morse River, you look at the river coming down. That's also greenish color. And when you go up to Morse Lake, you look across the lake, it's all greenish color. That's the name of that Morse Lake. Late Roy Morse territory. You have very little understanding of our language. You barely started to learn it. You just wanted to learn the meaning of our territories. And your spouse. Why I decided to write this was when I seen everything is happening up there is not of our ancestors. You barely started to learn it. Started to learn the meaning of our territories. Your spouse is from Haida-Gwa, and he has no rights. He is naked and deaf, but he has no right to speak on our behalf. And he does not own anything on Wet'suwet'en territory. You have been doing things for years now, haven't received correction, and if you did, you ignore the correction and continue to do what you want and overstep the chiefs and matriarch to make a name for yourself. So many Wet'suwet'en disagree with you and all that you do. You need to hear correction. We understand what you are trying to do, but you are doing everything wrong. And make it up as you go along. You need to continue to uphold Wet'suwet'en ways and Wet'suwet'en tradition. I am 80 years old, and we need to step forward because you are our niece. We have every right to correct you, and we need to tell you so much of what you are doing wrong. Our ancestors used the territories for fishing, hunting, trapping. They use medicinal plants to heal sickness. There are 5 different clans, and you know all the clans. Bear, caribou, killer whale, and beaver. They respect each other's and never crisscross into each other's territory. To visit, they invite each other's through death. The hereditary chief name territories are handed down to well-groomed chief in their clan after a year. A little baby name was given to you. You jump to the back row where chiefs who have been groomed for many years. You needed to be groomed for many, many years before you speak on behalf of them. Then you need to earn everything, name, territory with respect. You do not respect your own matriarchs. You have fooled everyone that you were representing them then. Where did you come from to represent us? You did not present us. Everyone, including especially you, are dropping names without being groomed. This is why the fee system is falling apart. Because people like you need to spend many, many, many years to be groomed. And we're talking about this because of Freddie and the people. They didn't even sit in the front row. You're supposed to sit in the front row. 2 of my sons still sit in the front row since 1966. They're still there. They couldn't move back because people are jumping over, getting in. Jeff Brown got in with Will from his brother Jimmy Brown. That's how we got in, without being groomed. And they're doing everything wrong because they don't know the padlock system. And Freddie did the same thing. And he's the one that's fighting me over the laptop. Today is November 11, our Arctic veterans went to war. 1939, 1945. They fought for our freedom. Where is that freedom? You were trying to control all of us when you're trying to control everything, that you are fooling so many people because you guys went traveling to Montreal. It was embarrassing. And the chiefs, they followed you around like dummies. As you say, you're speaking on behalf of these chiefs. Not one of the chiefs spoke. Not one of them. They just walked behind you like dummies. That was embarrassing. As a sniper. When the soldiers came home, all of them had nowhere to go because they were enfranchised and could not return to reserve. They had to live off the reserve. They became non-status Indians. I am one of them, as I married a veteran and I lost my status. To this day, I'm still being discriminated. Everything that I say or do, fucking non-status Indian, I still hear it. That's discrimination. That's for my own family. I go through lots, but I try to live. As a little girl at 14, I went through lots. I was deprived of everything. I'm hurting. When I married Andy, Freddie, and Janet, when we got married, they gave us $30 and they told us, you are now in franchise. You are not to go back to reserve, not to even visit my family. I lost so many aunts and uncles, Bill Morse, Justa Morse, K.O. Morse. I miss their funeral because I was able not to go back to reserve. I miss my mom. I couldn't go back. And that's why David Alec built the cabin up there, because he had nowhere to go. We all depended on the territories. David Alec built himself a beautiful cabin by the lake. That is the cabin that we occupy. He's descendants of every right to that cabin, but do not know how to get back as you moved in their cabin and squatting there for a few years. You are disrespecting the family of veterans and his livelihood, and you are disrespecting hereditary house members of Cassia. Them and their families belong there. You were talking without following protocol, and you are trying hard to make a name for yourself, at the same time making things up as you go along with every disrespectful and not true Wet'suwet'en ways. You need to respect the descendants of David Alec. We are asking you to back away and respect the holders of that cabin. You moved in and continue there. All of what you're doing is shameful. You are upholding Wet'suwet'en ways, but you are doing so many things wrong. For example, all of our business was conducted in the feast hall. Was conducted in our feast hall. This is why Chief needs to groom for many, many years before speaking on our behalf. I am saying the truth. Have respect. No respect. You have no respect for ancestors who won the Delgamu court case. The Stay court case. Any dispute would be dealt with in the feast hall, and all of our ways would be followed again. You are doing so many things wrong. Nobody blockade in old days. We just live our ways, and that is how we protected our territories. You are fighting so many Wet'suwet'en, and so many Wet'suwet'en do not agree with your ways, but you continue to do what you do. We know that development of logging changed our territories and our lives with our own Wet'suwet'en start turning the territories into ugliness that is wrong. Old ugly shacks. And people now are starting to claim Wet'suwet'en territory as their own. That is why our ancestors did not bring people from outside our territories to live on the territories. Now people who aren't even Wet'suwet'en turn Wet'suwet'en away from their shameful territory. Shameful. Because Andy came home, my sons came home, we usually go back to only We were just driving around right by that bridge. Nito Jaka come running. What are you doing? Where are you going? I said, what? I said, this is my father-in-law's territory right here. I said, what are you doing here? I stood up to her. She had no rights to tell me, what am I doing here? I said, I have a chief name. I said, I have every right to drive around. That's what I told her. That was shameful. You need to tell them that if you're going to keep them in territory. Not to ever talk to Aboriginal people the way they do. What are you doing here? They need to know that. I want you to correct them. The ancestors, they will carry on the name, strength, and the power of the land. They will hold the truth. You have so much to learn before you can do that. Comrade late Andrew George Sr. wrote at David Alec's funeral, Comrade gave, you have a supreme sacrifice, went home to our Almighty God, together with 4,000 Canadian servicemen and women who paid supreme service, a sacrifice for our freedom. You may rest in peace, lest we forget. And I put in the same word echoes for Andrew George Sr. for saying that today at his funeral. I have a heavy heart at 80 years old with what is happening with our feast system and the hereditary chief that allowed these shameful things to go on. And if I don't come forward, something bad will happen. And that's what I said in my language. If we carry on the way it's happening, our ancestors said, no, you don't do those things. And if brothers and sisters fight, they tell us not to fight, otherwise we'll lose a loved one. And now, Morristown is so much death. And I believe that's because our ancestors' territory, they're still around. Our fee system has strict laws. Late Mabel George, Brian George, and I myself were adopted out of Spock's house into Kayahawanit to stay away house, Thomas George. As a matriarch, we weren't even consulted. Your grandmother was Wet'suwet'en, but your mother's father was from Eastern Carrier, and your father is a non-status. More reason why you needed to be groomed and learn much more about Wet'suwet'en before you speak out on our behalf. Our late sister, Emily, married Freddie Acosta from Stelwaco. You have your degree and you are trying to use that to gain power and to make a name for yourself. You are trying to call yourself matriarch. You have so many more years of learning. How many years of grooming before you can call yourself this? Instead of you calling yourself matriarch on the TV the other night. But so they need to see you as a matriarch. We don't talk to media as though it's your own territories. Speak on behalf of so that you need to learn much more before you do that. As your great aunt, I'm asking you to step back. I have my hereditary name for 66 years today. I am known and respected among Wet'suwet'en matriarch. I have always followed our Wet'suwet'en culture with love and respect. I let my family, we no longer allow this to go on. Nobody can take away our culture and Kanka, but you conduct an action or going against our ways. Kanka is our footsteps. Let me tell you, you have spoiled your future because you think that you have a degree and you can come with southern territories, claim all the power. It's wrong. You are taken away from our hereditary system and our fee system. Pipeline or no pipeline, this is not about the pipeline. This is how we all conduct ourselves. And this is what I have in mind to tell you today. Because I don't want that. Because if I don't say nothing, things are going to get worse. I have to think of other people that are losing loved ones. It's affecting everybody. Because our ancestors never did those things. If you want to live up there, live your life the way you want. Let those people do what the heck they want to do, like our ancestors did. Behind our house, it's all there now. We don't stand there and try to fight them. The territory is gone with everything. Our ancestors used to work, but then all the government come in. The forestry start to make law of the logs. They have to have permit. There used to be sawmill all over the place. All our ancestors work on the sawmill. Because of that, they could have license to run the sawmill. And they cut all that off. And then the big company come in. That's how it went. I just want to tell you this, and I don't want us to have hard feelings. I have every right to tell you. I've been through lots. I was 14-year-old, and today I'm 66. And I'm not 66.